Hello and welcome to Mathieu Foundational Health. I'm here today with my special guest, Sarah. And Sarah is she's actually one of my caregivers. And now we're wearing two hats, and she's also a client with my health coaching practice. So Sarah has a really awesome story that I want to get out there to the world for people to see. She's totally turned her health around when for years, medical professionals really weren't helping all that much. Some things, yes, but anyway, she wasn't out of the woods yet, and now she's making some big progress just in the last few months. So, Sarah, I'm going to turn it over to you, and go ahead and let our viewers just give them a sense of what your health has been like over the years up until the present.
Absolutely. Thanks, Michael, for that introduction. So for years, I had just not been feeling great, drowsy, tired, not eating well. And this was all throughout my childhood, into high school, into college even. And that's where I met Michael and started really turning things around. So when I was young, I would always be constipated. I would never have any bowel movements, maybe once or twice a week. I would constantly be sick, whether it be a sinus infection or an ear infection, the flu, a cold. I would always have something, and it would drive my parents insane. But when I got into high school, I had a couple of procedures. They were left and right hip osteoplasties. So I had some problems with sports in high school, and I had to undergo these procedures.
Can you say a little bit more about what an osteoplasty is?
Sure. So in high school, I was a competitive swimmer, and I discovered some structural problems with the heads of my femurs. So if you can imagine the socket of the hip and then the head of the femur, my head of the femur was too large to fit inside of the head of the pelvis. So I had to undergo a couple of procedures where they shaved down the head of the femur in order to make it fit in the socket better, so I could have better rotation, better movement. I was having a lot of problems walking, running, swimming, pretty much any sort of activity because my hips were getting caught, and that was not good. So I had those procedures, and they were fairly minor. Right after the first one in 2015, I started suffering from these debilitating migraines. All day, every day, I would wake up with them, I would go to sleep with them, I would go to school with them, and it was a problem. It was terrible. And I had no idea that it could ever be connected to my diet. I just thought, oh, I'm having headaches. This is just what it is. So I went to high school, and then I had another hip surgery in 2017. And shortly after that, my health just went to nothing. I was still having these migraines for almost 3 years at that point. Still constipated, not eating right, not exercising because I was injured. And that was probably the lowest point in my life where I had felt so bad. I didn't know what was wrong. No one was helping me, and I didn't know what to do. I was completely at a loss. So enter college.
Can
I
I pause you for a second?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so can you give the listeners an idea of what your diet looked like in high school?
Sure. Yeah, it was not good. It was
So
cereal.
like, yeah, go ahead. You're doing it. Sorry.
It was cereal in the morning, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for lunch, pasta for dinner. It was very grain centric, very grain heavy, because that's what we had around in my house, and that's what my mom liked to make for us. So very grain centric. I mean, I would pull out a bag of crackers at school and just snack on them because it was easy, and grains they don't really go bad if you keep them. So it was, and at that point I didn't know any better because I thought, according to the American Heart Association and, other scientific nutrition websites, grains are good for you, eat more grains. So I didn't really see any problem with my diet at that point, and I kind of went with it. And, little did I know that was contributing so much to my poor health.
How about, were you able to eat dairy then?
I was having cereal with grains and milk, and I would have these little boxes of the Horizon chocolate milk after each one of my swimming practices because I was told, eat protein, eat carbs, you're burning a lot of calories, you need to replenish. And so I was drinking a lot of dairy, having a lot of cheese, butter. Yeah.
Okay. But not a lot of meat, at least initially from what you're telling me.
No, not at all. I came from a family where cheap meant good, and that's nothing against my parents or how I was grown up or anything. I understand it, but lots of grain, lots of sandwiches, not a lot of fresh produce, not a lot of fresh meat, or even fish or poultry or anything. It was very, very grain heavy.
Got it. Okay. So then you were moving on to college when I interrupted you.
No worries. So I entered college in 2017 at CU Boulder, and I still didn't know that anything was wrong at this point. I just thought, oh, I'm feeling bad, but maybe it's just because maybe I'm not exercising enough, or maybe something's just going on, but I didn't know, so I didn't take any active measures to help myself feel better. And then fast forward to December of 2018, I start working with Michael as a caregiver and start overhearing all of this carnivore and nutritional stuff, and everything about vitamins and the awesome power that nutrition holds in our bodies. And I get super into it because little did I know that nutrition could have such an impact on the overall well-being of an individual. So then in February of 2020, I started working with Michael on my diet, because I became so fascinated with this concept of food can be healing.
Can you fill in the pieces of information you got in January?
Yeah. So in December of 2019, I started working with Michael. In January of 2020, I had an upper endoscopy and a DEXA scan. So an upper endoscopy and a DEXA scan are two very critical components to a person diagnosed with celiac disease, which I was around that same time, probably a year ago. So in 2019, I was diagnosed with celiac disease, and none of these tests had been run on me before. Nothing had been examined further. So I saw a gastroenterologist, and she suggested that I have an upper endoscopy and a bone density scan. So I had the upper endoscopy in late January, as well as the DEXA scan. And I came back with positive markers for celiac disease, which is a reaction to two proteins found in wheat, rye, barley, a lot of the grains found in foods today. So, and then the DEXA scan revealed that I had moderate to severe low bone density in my lumbar spine and both of my hips, including the pelvis and femur. So that was really oh my goodness, what is going on? I have no idea why I'm having low bone density, why I'm not absorbing anything, where did this diagnosis come from? And that was really my shift into, okay, I really need to change the way that I eat. And I have this wonderful, this wonderful man here that can help me do that. So I'm gonna take advantage of that, and I'm gonna work with him about my health.
Yeah, and then add in the piece about your spleen also.
Yes. Also, sorry. Also,
Kitties love to be the center of attention.
oh yeah, absolutely. In addition to the DEXA scan and the upper endoscopy, I also had an ultrasound done of my complete abdomen to look for any swelling, abnormal gastrointestinal structures to see if anything was going on. And so I had that ultrasound, and
Was that precipitated by the symptoms you were having when you ate?
Yep.
Yeah, can you talk about that just for a sec?
For sure. So late January, early February, for about 3 consecutive weeks, I was pretty much unable to eat, drink without extreme nausea and sometimes vomiting. It
And
was
pain too, right?
absolutely lots of
Yeah.
pain, just severe abdominal cramping, unable to digest. I was burping all the time, and things were just not sitting right with me. So that's when I saw the gastroenterologist. She ordered the ultrasound of my abdomen, the upper endoscopy, and the DEXA scan.
Okay.
So that ultrasound revealed that my spleen was massive, so enlarged, and I figured, oh, this is okay. I mean, the spleen has something to do with immune regulation, so maybe I just got sick, or maybe something else is going on. But it turns out that it was directly related to a somewhat rare autoimmune disease called mast cell activation syndrome. So I can go into that in more detail. It's basically the immune cells in your body have these mediators called mast cells, and they excrete this protein called histamine, in which that regulates your reaction to certain allergens. Say you get bit by a mosquito. If you get bit by a mosquito right there and this entire side of your face turns red, that could be a symptom of having a mast cell mediation issue, which was my case in that moment. I had never thought anything of it. I'm a very outdoorsy person. I go outside, I get bitten by bugs, and all of these things, I really had no idea that anything was wrong with me. But yeah, at this point,
So your bites would get really enlarged?
oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah. And was that a problem growing up as well, or was this a more recent thing?
honestly, I never really paid attention to it when I was little. I just kind of thought, oh yeah, if a bug bites you, you're gonna get a little red area right there, and that's what happens, and that's okay. So yes, probably it was a problem when I was a kid, but I definitely notice it now. Especially say I go to the gym and I'm working out really heavily, I will become much more flush than any person without this autoimmune condition would be.
Yeah.
So really, really interesting. It was at this time where puzzle pieces kind of started to fit together, but there were some components that just still weren't right and not there and not helping me. So in late February, about February 25th, I was working with Michael on my diet and my nutrition, and he started me on vitamin D, vitamin K, and Remag, which is a highly absorbable magnesium that you just drink, and it goes right into your system, and it instantly helps. At this time, I was also becoming carnivore-ish, meaning that I would say about 80% carnivore, which means I eat a very large portion of my daily meals as meat, whether it be pork, beef, steak. I eat a lot of meat now. Carnivore-ish also includes the low oxalate, low histamine fruits and vegetables like bok choy, cauliflower, blueberries. So I'm not 100% carnivore, but you can trust me, I'm on my way there.
Awesome. Let's see, there was something in there I wanted to ask you about. Oh, and I just want to make clear for the listeners that Sarah said vitamin K, and I want to make really sure that's clear that that's vitamin K2. And there's a huge difference. Vitamin K is all about helping the blood coagulate, which is a totally necessary thing when we get cut or bleeding. It's what helps stop the bleeding. And vitamin K2 has a very different function, and it's all about, your vitamin D tells the body to absorb more calcium out of the gut, and vitamin K2 tells the calcium where to go. So instead of getting, when you're low in vitamin K2, that calcium can get deposited in the soft tissues. And yes, it is needed for muscle contractions and other bodily functions, all across the body. But you can make large depositions in the soft tissues where it should be. And you can start getting calcifications, and there's a very strong suspect that you can start getting calcifications in the coronary arteries. And anyway, so K2 tells a lot of that calcium to go into the bones and the teeth. And that can be a major contribution to losing bone mass. Yep.
Absolutely. When I was diagnosed with celiac, I was also diagnosed with multiple major vitamin deficiencies, specifically speaking, iron and vitamin D, calcium, vitamin B12. I was just low in all sorts of areas. And I can absolutely, certainly 100% tell you that I have never felt better in my life than I do right now.
Yeah, that's really exciting.
Yeah, being carnivore, taking vitamins, really taking care of myself. I have honestly never felt this way before in my life. I'm, waking up without an alarm and promptly, not feeling fatigued or tired all of the time. My mental focus is better. I've been just more clear about things, and I love it. So I'm absolutely going to stick with it. I think it's done wonders for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's you're such a testimony of how when you give the body the proper ingredients that it needs, that it is such a phenomenally amazing, organisms we are as, human beings, but all the creatures on the earth. You give it the right raw ingredients, and it knows what to do with them. We don't have to overthink it. And, there are times when we need to get more specific and more focused on particular aspects because, in this toxic world and other things, there can be a lot of other issues that we may have to target. But, in the work that I'm doing with people, my first step is let's create a good foundation. So that's why I call myself Foundational Health. Because for so many people, if you get that good foundation in there, the body does the rest. And then you can come in and target certain things more if necessary. But it's best to just, if we don't need to do that, you don't need to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, directly to that point, coming in, working for you when I did not have a good foundation. I was struggling about what to do. Where do I go from here? There's so much information out there. Like, I need help. And, you got me on these vitamins and you told me all of these things that I really needed to hear about my body, about how to understand it at a more functional level. And look where I am now. I am on a very steady foundation, and I can't wait to just keep building my health up and up and up, because I know what to do now. I know what's going to help my body, and I know what's going to help myself, and I can't wait to see what this diet and what the world holds for me next.
Yeah, and I want to say, as someone who only saw you, and at least during that time, I think you just had one shift a week with me. So that was kind of our catch-up time.
Yeah.
And, I saw okay, I found out I have osteopenia, and I was like, oh, you're like, honey, you're way too young for that.
Yeah.
Way. Not a 20-year-old woman should not be having that problem.
No way.
And then, it was a week or two later, you're like, you were really not in a happy place when you came in, and, you told me that your spleen's enlarged, and I could see how afraid you were. And because that should not be happening again at your age, if at all. So, so I will be honest, I had my fingers crossed, like, okay, she's got youth on her side, so let's just give some foundational stuff and see what happens. And then I don't think you said much for a few weeks, but then about a month in, I think it's like, hey, how you doing? And then you told me about what happened with coffee. Can you share that piece?
Oh yeah. So about a month in, after starting carnivore, I was off of caffeine. No tea, no coffee, no energy drinks. I didn't need it. I was waking up with so much energy and so much productive spirit. I didn't need it. I didn't feel like I needed to jumpstart myself. I didn't feel like I needed to power myself down. My body was just taking care of all of that. And I was amazed, because I had no idea. This is all very new to me and very foreign, because, like I said, for the past 18, 19 years, I was misdiagnosed and underdiagnosed, and no one could figure out what was wrong with me. And then I took this leap and I stepped out, and now I'm feeling the best that I've ever felt in my life. I'm still not drinking coffee.
Did any of your practitioners ever ask you about your diet?
None. Never. Not until I saw this gastroenterologist earlier this year did anyone ask me, okay, so we're thinking that you have celiac disease. We're going to use the upper endoscopy to confirm that. How have you been eating? And I'm just, wow, no one has ever asked me that question before. And all my life I'd been going to doctor's offices, in and out, and I took what they said and I held it in my hand and I said, okay, they're the one with the medical degree, so I'm going to trust them. And that was absolutely a mistake.
And their only recommendation was getting off of gluten, probably, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not understanding that celiac disease, which is an autoimmune disorder, can potentially trigger other autoimmune disorders or even in other allergies that I've noticed. So yeah, one interesting thing that happened to me recently was a couple of days ago, in fact. At this point, I'm maybe a year around there, being completely gluten-free, and I'm not drinking coffee. I'm at this point almost 100% off of dairy, and a couple of days ago I ate just a little, kind of a single serving of plain low-fat Greek yogurt, and my entire system was just off for that entire day. I ate it and I started feeling nauseous and I started feeling bloated and cramping. And I said, never again. I'm never going to do that again, because dairy has so much in it, so much bacteria, so many probiotics, that for a fragile system, a fragile gastrointestinal system like my own, that can be very harmful. And I definitely learned my lesson on that. So yeah.
Are you eating butter?
No, I'm not.
Oh, you stop butter too. Okay.
From
Yeah.
my carnivore-ish diet, I am getting plenty of saturated fat. So I just decided to exclude dairy as a whole, because I want to protect my microbiome. I want to protect my system and give it all of that good stuff, while not necessarily overloading it or giving it something potentially harmful. So I'm totally off of dairy, totally off of coffee, and working my way to be that 100% carnivore.
And I don't necessarily recommend that that's a place people need to go full on carnivore. But for most people, I'll recommend that they go low carb, because of all the incidents of obesity and heart disease and insulin resistance, and then all the inflammation that whole cascade can create, but also increasing fat, especially animal fat, and for some people, they need to be on a certain amount of plant material, and other people don't seem to need to. So it's very individual, and we all have to find our own way. And I think one of the things I see in myself and also in other clients is the further down the road they go, the more they're getting clear signals from their body on what they might need. And, so one day may be a high fat day, another day may be a really high protein day. You really got to listen. And I know I'm noticing myself, because I'm about 10 months into being mostly carnivore. Even in the middle of a meal, I'll have eaten a lot of protein without much fat, and then it's like the protein doesn't taste good anymore. Right. And then I eat some like pure fat, and my body goes, oh yeah. And then I may eat some more fat, and then at some point my body says, that protein kind of looks good now. So I just find it really fascinating how quickly the signals are there for what the body finding balance in what it's requiring in that moment.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, along those lines, I've almost completely omitted grains from my diet as well, because of the celiac disease particulate. I kind of went with it, and there's gluten in everything. So refined grains was definitely a challenge to take out, since that was primarily my diet for most of my childhood into adulthood. But now I'm feeling better. I'm thinking better. And yes, I do still receive those signals from my body. Some days it's like, I need sugar, give me sugar.
Yeah.
And I have to take a deep breath and say, I'm doing this for you, so we're not having sugar. But yeah, I can definitely understand the cravings, but
yeah.
I would say,
and I want to say, as a compliment to you, and I know it in myself, when you get some test results back that are not good, there's a certain level of motivation that one can have, that somebody who's like kind of mediocre in how they're feeling may not quite have that same level of commitment, but you just dove right in. And then it was so amazing to see how quickly you got results. So it's just been really exciting to watch you take off here. And I also note to people, you are feeling so not good then. You actually bailed on the rest of your semester at school to take care of yourself. But as soon as you switched your diet, which was right around the same time you you bailed on school for now, although you're back in now. But it was a short time after that that things really started really turning around really quickly.
Oh yeah, I would say I'm no medical practitioner. I don't have a medical degree, but I would say from how broken and damaged my system was, my microbiome was so off kilter that just changing one thing, changing two things, just going for it, that really helped me turn it around so quickly. Um, because my body started getting all of this good stuff, good nutrients, absorbing more. And it was like, yes, I like this. Let's keep going. And I've never felt better. And yes, I did. I did withdraw from the semester. Last semester, I was having a hard time just getting things in check. And at that point, I was still very much in the transition period of, okay, we're working on changing things. So let's go through everything in the pantry and everything in the fridge, and let's go for it. And I'm glad I did. And I have you to thank for a lot of your help.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. And that's what I'm all about right now. It's like getting the word out and helping people regain their health in
Yeah.
any way I can. So it's exciting to see you getting such good results. Now, let's fill in the oxalate piece.
Yes.
Tell people what your initial symptoms were around, and if anybody knows anything about oxalates, we'll just give a quick little primer. But oxalic acid is in a lot of plants, and some plants are super high. I'll be making some videos just getting more into detail on that, so we don't have to go into it here. But I coached you a little bit about looking at the plant foods you were eating and moving towards reducing the higher oxalate foods, which you just grabbed right onto. But one of the things I want to say is once you start lowering your oxalate level, there's some kind of a mechanism in the body that knows that, oh, hey, the oxalate levels in the blood are going down. And if we have been eating a whole lot of oxalate foods in the past, the body can only dump so much every day. So it's forced to store them. So once you start lowering how much you're eating, the body says, hey, we can start clearing this out, which Susan Owens of the Trying Low Oxalate Facebook group, she made the term oxalate dumping. And so it's your body clearing out these old stored oxalates. So initially, I know you told me you didn't really have much for symptoms for a while, except you were getting crusty eyes in the morning.
Mm-hmm. I would wake up in the morning and my eyes would basically be glued shut, just with little tiny crystals on my eyelashes. And I would rub my eyes and wake up in the morning and look at my hands like, oh my goodness, what is that? Little did I know that when I switched over to carnivore-ish, I started going through this massive oxalate dump because I wasn't eating so many of the plant foods that oxalates are found in. Primarily, one of my biggest oxalate offenders is sweet potatoes. I love sweet potatoes. I love sweet potato fries. And I will say it was hard for me to give them up, but I am tremendously grateful that I did. One of the more recent symptoms that I've been having concerning oxalate dumping is my right ankle, up from probably midway through the calf down to my foot, has just been terribly painful. I having trouble putting pressure on it a little bit. It doesn't seem swollen, at least, but I'm having some joint pain, and I have oxalates to thank for that, but I am extremely grateful and happy that they're leaving my system because, as you mentioned, oxalates, they build up in the body and they can bind to these calcium receptors, which was one of my main issues, that I wasn't absorbing enough calcium from my diet, as it were. So I believed to be going through this big oxalate dump, and I'm super excited. I'm really excited for my joints to start feeling better and stop cracking and creaking and making sounds when I walk. So I'll keep you updated on that for sure.
Yeah, I want to know how that continues on here. Yeah, what happened is when Sarah was working with me last week, she was helping me get on my bicycle, and she had to squat and move around a bunch. So the first time she squatted, I hear boom, boom. It's like, wow, both her knees. And it's like, I don't ever remember that happening when she was feeling. And then a few minutes later, you squatted again, and they both popped really loud again. And then you walked across our wood floor, and I'm hearing crack, 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 crack. It sounded like all the bones in your feet were cracking, your ankles. And I asked you, it's like, are your bones cracking more than usual?
Yep, they absolutely are. They're still doing that. It's every bone, my wrists, elbows, knees, ankles.
Yeah.
I'm having a lot of joint stuff, which is good. That means that I'm getting rid of all of these oxalates and ridding my body of this, this toxin just building up. And it's a good feeling. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah. And didn't you say something also that your joints were feeling kind of burny?
Yeah, especially my right ankle, right on the ankle bone, the malleuses. I'm having just terrible, terrible, like flaming feelings inside. I've been putting icy hot on it. I've also been kind of covering it with Remag, which is that highly resorbable magnesium, and just covering it with the towel and letting it sit. And I've been noticing some relief from that. So I'm definitely gonna do that again. But yeah, just some weird pain in my ankle.
Yeah, at first, besides your eyes getting crusty, I was thinking she might be one of the lucky ones that just glides through this whole thing without having much negative. But and it's not terrible what you're going through, but I don't like that you're feeling enough pain in that ankle that it's hard to put full weight into it.
Mm-hmm.
But that, from everything that we're seeing out there, that will change. And this is, you luckily, starting so early on this, maybe you've got 20 years, but still you don't have 50 years you're trying to reverse. So you've got age on your side, and you haven't accumulated as much as some of us people further down the road. So that's good. But they're finding, like on the Triangle Oxalate group and Sally Norton's work, they're often finding it's taking some people up to 10 years staying on a low oxalate diet before they totally clear, before they feel like, oh, I'm still not releasing oxalates anymore. So the body goes through interesting cycles. There's cycles like they found, there's a study that Sally talks about where, which is done with women collecting every urine void for the day over multiple days. And that most women have 2 times during the day where they dump a lot of oxalates.
Wow.
And then there was a guy who did urine testing over an entire month, and through the month, his oxalate dumping was a perfect histogram curve. So, we don't have, as men, we don't have a moon cycle, a menses, but it certainly seems like in terms of how the body clears oxalates, there is some kind of lunar phase.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's fascinating. And then you'll hear, old timers who've been at it for several years or longer, you'll hear them talk about, like Sally especially, because I talk with her, she's like, oh, yep, I'm 7 years in, and I just had a week from hell of, not as bad as it used to be, but, all of a sudden some joint pain and some things like that, maybe some disrupted sleep, and then it goes away. So, yeah.
Wow. It's super interesting. I have a lot more to learn about oxalates, but I am certainly in it. I hope to make it out with sturdier joints and less creaking and cracking, because I know it gets annoying. But yeah, overall, my transition, just my learning and my understanding about the body's processes has become so enlarged by working with you, and I am extremely grateful for all of it.
Yeah, and tell people what you're in school for and what your future plans are with schooling.
Okay, yeah. So right now I am at CU Boulder. I am getting a bachelor's degree in integrative physiology and a certificate in global public health. My plans for the future are to eventually work with Doctors Without Borders. It's an organization that is very near and dear to my heart, and I want to be a part of it. I want to travel and I want to help people that are way less fortunate than those of us here in Western culture.
Yeah. So you want to get your medical degree?
I do, yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Cool.
Is there, I think we've covered most things. I would love to do like maybe like in 6 months, do a follow-up interview with you.
Okay.
I think it would be really cool to see, you know, where you're at in 6 months and what's happened in that time.
Absolutely. That would be really cool.
Yeah.
I'm also super interested to run another CBC or just a vitamin and glucose panel to see where my levels are now and where my vitamins are, because I can tell you I'm feeling 100% better, but I want to see evidence that I'm feeling better. So
Yeah, data can be a good thing.
oh yeah, absolutely. But that's a great idea. In 6 months, we'll do another interview, do
Yep.
another checkup.
Yeah, and maybe in that time you might be able to get an ultrasound
Yeah.
if that with the COVID thing, if that becomes a possibility to get in there.
Yeah, check out my spleen, see how we're doing there.
Yep. Yep.
A great idea.
Yeah, so just to wrap things up, is there any last things you might want to say to listeners or words of encouragement in regarding, just what shows up for you?
Sure. To everyone listening out here on the World Wide Web, I want to say that if you're suffering or if you're in pain, look for alternative answers. There is an answer out there, and you might just have to be patient and you might have to wait to find it. But once you find it, it will be worth it. So don't stop looking. And also trust yourself and listen to yourself. Your body knows what it's talking about, and your brain knows what it's talking about. So find the answers, be your own doctor. I believe in you, I trust you, and you can do this.
Awesome. Thanks for those great words, Sarah.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, so, well, we're going to sign off then. So again, this is Mathieu Foundational Health. Thanks so much, Sarah, for sharing your awesome story of how things can turn around.
Thank you for having me. I'll see you soon.
Okay, signing off.
Okay, bye.